Hi guys, and welcome back to another video where I build baits so you don't have to. Today's going to be a little bit of something different. As some of you know who've been following for a while, I actually dropped one of the big swim baits where I didn't like the clear coat and the color scheme itself that much. I dropped it in this water tank, and actually I said we're going to do a long time test and just see how much water the filament draws or the clear coat draws or the paint draws itself. We'll see also how strong the joint is and things like that after such a long period of time in the water. So I prepared a scale where we're going to be doing some pull tests today to see where the breaking point on the big swim bait is, that you guys actually know how strong actually 3D prints can be if you do it properly. So we're going to test that. I'm really interested to see how the lure also performed in the water itself. I damaged the clear coat beforehand that the lure pulls water, because I want to see how the 3D printed base holds up over time. So I'll straight away fish this out and we'll look at the damage and at the water seepage and what really happens to a lure that has been sitting in water for the last, I think, 9 weeks. So it's good over 2 months. I think I made a video where I talked about it the first time, and if you're interested in that, I think it was one of the trout grubs. I'll pop it up here or there and you can check that out to see where I popped it in the first time. And since then, I've just left it in here and just let it draw water to see how strong actually a lure is and how it changes over time with water seepage and we'll assess the damage today and make a little bit more damage through. We'll be doing a little bit of impact testing, so I'll be knocking it up with a hammer. We'll be doing a lot of pull tests to see how the screw eyes hold up and how the joint itself holds up. So we'll see how that is and how it goes, and I'll get you guys on the desk and I'll get it out of this tank straight away and put it on the desk that you see what we are working with. So I took it out and this is what we're working with. So you see there's a lot of blistering along the sides. This is also where I took off some of the color. I took off some color here, and we're just gonna now see and access the bubbles and actually see what they are and where they are placed. So it seems like there is water underneath and it seeps in to areas where I cut open a little bit the clear coat itself. Funny enough, not where I do the T-joint and clean it out, because I often go over still with super glue and seal those surfaces, so you actually don't see too much around the edges where I reseal it. You see a little bit here where I might have not sealed it properly, but it seems like most of it comes through mistakes in the clear coat itself. And we'll try and get off the clear coat and see how the 3D print itself looks. So I'll peel this off a little bit, and as you see, it is like a skin that you can peel off. And then I'll go ahead and do this for a little while and take off some of the skin, and then we'll look at the damage that we have on the actual blank itself, or if it really is just a problem with the clear coat itself, or if the main body of the lure itself also pulls water. So we'll look at that in a moment once I get you guys back. So now we're back, and as you see, I am taking a lot of the color off, and I just want to show you guys that I'll go into detail anyway in the outro on my conclusion of this whole test, because I actually think that it has a lot to do with the clear coat itself, and I only did one layer of clear coat on this lure itself, and I usually do them in more layers, but I wasn't happy with this lure and I anyway wanted to test it, how bad it pulls water, and if the 3D print itself would actually get damaged through this process. So that it was perfect for what I needed it to be, but I'm really happy to see that the 3D print itself, as you can see, has got no deformation, or it doesn't really seem like, because if I go over the surface and pull off the color, and take a sanding block, that actually looks exactly like it used to. So that means that the color and clear coat are the main problem in this experiment for drawing water, because as you can see, I'm sorry for the noises, they aren't the nicest, that surface is still perfect from the sealing process that we went through before actually going into the airbrushing. So I just wanted to show, because a lot of people say that 3D printed lures, they pull water and you should go with wood, and using a 3D printer always makes problems with the lure in water, because you'll always have problems that the filament itself draws a lot of water, which it seems not to do if you prepare it properly before you start the airbrushing. So that was exactly what I actually wanted to show with this video, that if you actually prepare your 3D prints properly before you go into the airbrushing and things like that, I could take this lure, take off all the color, and I might drop it into the dryer that I have for the filament, and then I could just take it again and airbrush it, and it would be perfectly fine. So that's something to really keep in mind for yourself, that um, tests like this show you if it actually would work or not. And just because somebody has got a opinion that filament draws a lot of water or anything like that, you actually have to see how you prepare it before you use it, because they actually don't know your use case. So that is something really cool to see, and I'm really happy. I'll still strip a little bit more of the paint off before we start doing the strength test itself, but I am really happy with how this looks. So now let's just take a little look at the head still before we go into the strength test and see if we have any different result to the tail itself. So we'll pull off these colors, see what comes from the underneath, and then I'll just go ahead, grab some rough sandpaper, and look at that. That surface is like new. I'm actually even thinking of doing a strength test or not, because I could actually one-to-one take this lure and use it again. So the sealing process does a lot for what we need the lures to be able to handle. The clear coat, yes, if you go over twice or three times, I'm sure it would be better. We might test that as well in the following weeks. I'll drop one in the tank again just to see that once I've got my curing station, that if that actually changes, that if we've got a very good clear coat on the lure itself, that things like this don't happen anymore, because the 3D print doesn't pull water at all. It actually looks exactly the same as one of my prototypes that I have made already. So that is really cool. I'll still strip a little bit. I'll leave some of the paint on that you guys can see that there's no funny business going on and that we're actually testing the lure that was in the tank for such a long time because maybe it damaged the structural integrity of our lure or something like that. So we'll be using this one for the strength test because it has been sunk in the tank for quite a while, but I'll get you guys back anyway for that in a moment. So now just one more time for comparison. These are two prototypes and I just want to show you these surfaces and the differences that one can see. You don't really see anything on the surface of the one that has been in water for now over 2 months, which is really cool. I stripped off the color. We're now going to go into a strength test where I'm going to hook up one of the tail ends to a anvil and we'll be pulling from the top, and I got one of these scales that I demounted the hook for the for my suitcase, and we'll be pulling till there is a failure, and then we'll be able to see how much weight the hook hangers themselves actually hold up to. So we'll be hanging it in here and in the line tie because they are the same size of the eyelet screw. So if one of them gives up, you anyway know it pretty much, if one gives up, the other one was going to give up soon. And then I'll actually drill a hole into our tail, and we will hang it again on and actually strength test the joint itself to see how long the joint itself holds up. And then we'll still take a hammer and give it some nice knocks and see how impact resistant the lure blank itself is. So that's going to be the plan still for today, and I'll straight away hook it up and I'll set the camera up that you guys can see the scale itself, that there is no funny business going on, and that you guys can see in real time how much strength I have to put into breaking this lure. So now I'll show you guys. I mounted it once on the hanger here, once on the hanger right here. Now we'll start putting pressure. Whoop! Hello. So I'll have to review the footage and see what actually happened. But as you guys can see, I'll cut it off here. As you guys can see, the hanger itself bent open, ripped out. So it actually is, if you would use wire tied to a hook hanger or anything like that, it would be even stronger. And if you would epoxy it in, because now actually my screwlet eye is open and that's why we lose it. But I'll now set up the next test. I'll drill in a hole right here and then we'll do exactly the same. I'll drill in a hole at the top and at the bottom. We'll hang that all in and then we'll see how long the joint actually holds up to. So after nearly knocking you guys out, I drilled my holes and we are pretty much ready for the next test to see how much pressure we can put on this one. So it actually didn't break on me, and I think the scale only goes to 50 kgs. So let's put again pressure on. Yeah. So no budging on that. I can actually pick up the anvil on my lure. So the weak points are not the lure because it's 3D printed. It actually is not. This is not the problem. The eyelet screws are the problem. But anyway, look at the footage as well of the eyelet screw right here, how much we were able to achieve, and then we'll see still what it takes for impact before breaking. I damaged it quite a lot already through drilling into it and things like that, but we'll knock it up still a little bit and see how good this actually goes. So we'll carry on with our anvil and let's see how much it can take. So now we're still gonna whack it a bit. We'll straight away start with the tail part. That was quite quickly. So I wasn't really thinking it would go that quick, but I think through, as you see where I drilled the hole, and knocking it there was a little bit of a hassle, because if I do it here, it's quite unhappy actually. Of course I'm hitting it on an anvil and with a hammer, but that is actually quite interesting. It would also be interesting to see if I don't drop it into water, if it actually holds up longer. So let's give the top still a little bit of a whack. Yeah, it cracked as well. There it goes. So there you see. But I have to say, for the trauma that I put into it, with it being so long in water and everything, that is actually still not too bad. I'm actually still quite happy. It's quite rough, but it held up quite okay. So, yeah, this one pretty much is completely wrecked. The nose part actually didn't break, but we'll see what we can do and what we'll talk about. It's actually cool to see the inside surfaces because I actually never see them because they are enclosed in the print itself. We could also look into the infill directions because maybe we could strengthen it through that a little bit, but I still think that if you're fishing normally, you won't be running into an anvil. You'll knock it on stones and things like that, but that will never be as bad as this. So it still is a really good viable option, and that I have to say one big positive part towards wood. Now, actually, I'll get you guys back for the outro. I'll talk through everything, and we'll get to that anyway there because, yeah, I'll do a little bit of a conclusion. So see you in the outro. Hi guys and welcome to the outro. So we did a little bit of a torture test today of the lures themselves after being dropped in water for a long time to see if it draws water or things like that. I made myself a little bit of a list what I actually want to go through that I don't forget anything. That we also I got all the values that I reviewed the footage that I've got the maximal values. You could also pause it there and actually see how that actually all works and anyway see it yourself. But the first thing is I'm really glad to see that through the sealing process that we go through, I don't know if you guys have seen that video already, how I prepare my lures after 3D printing, but I'll pop it up here or there and you can check it out. You can then see how I actually seal and prepare the 3D print after I take it off of the print bed before going into the airbrushing itself. That is one thing that I'm really happy to see, that the print itself actually doesn't draw any water. We don't see any surface change or anything like that. So that is really cool. So there's nothing that I can see with my eye, I would say. It might get a little bit more brittle, I'm not too sure, or if that is actually just the plastic itself, but we'll go into that anyway in the last point that I'm going to be talking about in the outro today. And the second point is actually, as you saw, we did have a lot of blistering along the surfaces and I think that is due to using too little of a clear coat on that lure. Because as I said, I only did one coat and left it at that because I wasn't happy with it anyway, and I also damaged that clear coat and dropped it in the water to see if the print itself actually pulls a lot of water. So one thing to keep in mind, all airbrushing colors that you use are water based, so they actually like water. You can actually thin them down with water, and I don't recommend that. I just say one could. But that's why the airbrush colors themselves tend to draw water, and that could be one reason for when the clear coat is damaged already, or has some imperfections in, or you've got some spots that actually aren't coated properly. Water can start seeping underneath the layers. So you've got your clear coat layer, then you've got the paint layer, and then you've got the base where your 3D print is with the sealant. So, and it draws water between those two layers, and through that you actually get this blistering effect that we actually saw today. And that's why we could also pull off the clear coat so nicely as if it would be a second skin. So that is something really cool to see, because I know that the sealing process really works well, and that we still have to work a lot on the clear coat itself. I'll also be testing the same thing with another lure, maybe one that isn't as much work, but I can clear coat it more often and it goes a little bit quicker, and we'll drop it in and see if with a thicker UV coat we don't get any blistering or anything like that. Because then I can show you guys that it is the clear coat and not the print itself, and it is actually due to the colors that are put in between the layer of the print itself and the clear coat. The next point is I looked at the strength values, and I think that if I'm really going to go for big fish, I might actually think of doing some wire hardware in the as hook hangers. The joint itself, I think I'll leave as is because we got a value that actually exceeded what the scale itself can take. So we were above 50 kilograms, and I think it would have been breaking around 60, 62 kilograms, because as we check the hook hangers actually break at around 31 kilograms max strength. So that is still really cool to see, and actually not bad at all for a eyelet screw. I have to say I'm actually really happy with that value, because I am actually fishing with line that has got 16 kgs of tensile strength. So that is actually, it's stronger than my line, and that's really cool to see that that also shouldn't be such a problem, and you're anyway going to be playing the fish, so the fish itself won't be able to pull that out so easily unless you're really targeting huge monsters. So that is something that I also really like to see, that also works quite well and actually holds up quite well. But the thing that shocked me a little bit, I have to say, but actually also not that much, is the impact resistance of the lures. Because I actually thought it would hold up a little bit better. Of course, it is been dropped in a water tank for more than 2 months, and I knocked it with a hammer on an anvil. So there's two metal surfaces, and of course that is a extreme test itself, but I still was shocked how easily I was able to split off the tail, and how little shock it actually withstood. So that's something that I might still work on with the infill, and how the walls actually get generated of the lure itself, because I think that through adding infill in those areas, it is not as impact resistant as if we would actually just do walls themselves. Because if you look at the print, and I print the lures standing upright like that, and if we would do just walls, you've got a little bit more flex, because the only thing that can happen is that the walls to each other delaminate, and it shouldn't be as brittle. Of course, I'm also using PETG. PETG is known to be more brittle than PLA or things like that. So I think the impact resistance of PLA would be better than the PETG lure, but I'll still anyway take this one out and throw them around. It'll anyway miscast often and maybe hit a rock and stuff like that, and just take you guys with and anyway see if we actually are able to break it in normal circumstances. Um, because I actually still think that they would withstand quite a lot. But that is one thing that a lot of people always say that wood lures are the ways to go and things like that. And there's a lot of people actually hating on people building 3D printed lures. And that's why I do videos like this. That actually it is a really cool alternative that if you don't have the workspace to use all the wood tools that you have and everything, you can actually go ahead and make a really cool 3D printed lure that still is really good to use. And that's one thing I have to say, that a wooden lure wouldn't have the problems with impact as these, because through the fibers that are naturally in the wood, it has got a little bit more of a give, and it wouldn't crack. Because of course this is plastic. Plastic cracks easier. If we would use something that is there are fiber enhanced filaments, I'm sure that it might help a lot with the strength itself and things like that. But if you're just using the normal filaments that you can go and buy, which I anyway recommend because it's an easy way to get into lure building if you are looking to get into it, I still think that this is really a cool option. And the only downfall that I saw today while testing is that it would crack. But if you take a normal lure you get in a shop or something like that, they often aren't out of wood anymore, and they are all out of some plastic compound or something like that, and they will also be brittle. So if I take a normal lure and I knock it on an anvil, I'm pretty sure it will also crack. So that is something also just to keep in mind for yourself, that if you get a little backwind from people that say 3D printing isn't lure building and it's not the way to go, just give it a try because it's a easy and cheaper way to get into the hobby itself. And we anyway all want the same output, and that is a working lure that you can actually catch fish with. So I don't understand why I would criticize somebody that is just going a other path. But that's just my thoughts on that. So my mic actually just died, and I just wanted to thank you guys for tuning in and going along with this strength test. And if you have any questions or thoughts on the video today, or what you actually think is the reason for the blistering, or why it is so brittle, or anything like that, just leave them down in the comments, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. And if you think that this is actually a viable option to get into lure building yourself, let me know as well. I'm really interested, and we're going to be doing a cool unboxing next week. I've got a little parcel sitting on my desk for quite a while already. It's got to do with the setup that we're going to be using for these lures, and I'm really looking forward to take that out, and we'll be putting some new line on it. I've got a rod and reel. We'll be looking at both next week, and it's a gem. I actually found it on a second-hand marketplace, and I got it from a guy that collects reels, and he didn't use it ever, and he just thought he'll part of it. But you'll anyway see that next week. And otherwise, I wish you guys a great one, and we'll see each other. Keep fishing and safe. Cheers.